just the norm. Just going through work and getting to that time of year where you don't want to be doing work, and yet there seems to be a ton of it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Look, just before we do that, I don't know where CJ is. He was here a minute ago. He's probably having a siesta over there in Spain. So, we'll I don't know what we'll do, but we'll carry on without him as per normal when he has these siestas or doesn't pay his internet bill or whatever it is. Now, firstly, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians where we all work, meet, and play, and just pay the utmost respects to all our elders, past, present, and the up and coming. Also, want to pay tribute to my mob, the Muddy Muddy people down there in southwestern New South Wales. Pay tribute to your mob, Brett. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Look, and I just want to thank all our old people, our ancestors, for getting us where we are today, and fighting those hard yards that they have done, and made it a little bit easier for us. So I'll hand it over to you, brother Brett. And as people would know, you've been on before a few times. It's probably been a little while since you've been on. But yeah, so let's hit it off. I mean, you got some fabulous news that you're going to share with us, and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, brother. So over to you.
Well, for sure. Well, I also should acknowledge the Yugambeh people. I'm up here on the Gold Coast. The Kumberberry people of the Yugambeh Nation. Thank them for their beautiful custodianship of their stories and their songlines, which they passed on to their young people. I also acknowledge their Bullambul ancestors and their Mudjugant elders, and all those young people that will be the emerging leaders. And I'd like to thank them for allowing me to live and work on their country.
Beautifully said, bro.
I'd also like to thank Wiradjuri Galang, Wiradjuri mob as well.
Beautiful.
My respect to Wiradjuri Nurumbung.
Now I'm just going to hand it back over to CJ, saying that it's actually his responsibility, our acknowledgement of the country. So I'm going to hand it back to him because he normally does it. So I'll just hand it back to you, brother. I know you went missing for a minute. We thought it might have been a siesta. We thought it might have been the internet connection, but over to you, brother.
No worries, bud. Yeah, well said, bud. Look, just like to acknowledge country, I guess. I'm currently in, I think it's the Catalan sort of country in Spain. So I'm down in just about near the border of Spain and Portugal. So not sure whose country it is, but it's magnificent. I'd like to thank them for, the hospitality that they provided here. So I'd like to acknowledge their culture. There's a lot of culture here, as well as, as we know, back at home as well. So, but back at home, I want to acknowledge my people back in Cairns, the Yidinji people, and also the Torres Strait people, the Bagal people, elders, past, present, and emerging. So, hand it back to you, Jack.
Beautifully said, brother. As per normal. I'm going to hand it over to Brett now. He's got some fantastic news that I learned about a couple of days ago, and I'd love for him to share what he's been up to, what he's achieved, and some of the ways that he's been doing it. So over to you, brother Brett.
Well, I have had a big week. I actually passed my PhD last week. So that's been something that's been dominating my life for about 4 years, but it seems like about 20. Look, I mean, I've been very fortunate in mine. It's been absolutely, like a labour of love, and I've got to, connect with culture and strengthen ties with culture through the process of it. So it's actually been a wonderful journey. When I speak to other people that are doing PhDs, they're all on antidepressants and telling me how bad they're going it. And I was sitting on the floor in my office creating songline story maps. So it's a bit of a different way of looking at it. So, but so my PhD, as I've spoken about before, it well, it started off as one thing, and then it changed along the way as I connected and reconnected with my culture and with my mob, and uh, sort of understood the agency of country and the sovereignty of country. The more the project changed and the ways I did it changed, and we still managed to get the answer, but in the process of that, we created a new methodology on how to conduct First Nations research, which is a completely First Nations process, which we call the Budjin Galang Budjin Galang process, which means bird mob process in Wiradjuri, and it's based around stories of birds and the stories that birds tell us and the direction they give us as our brothers and sisters in country, and how we should conduct research with community, and I'm quite shocked. It's been I thought it would be a bigger battle with academia to get it over the line, but as it turns out, I was examined by two white ladies from Canada, and they liked it. So and they really connected. The thing I take most from it was their willingness to connect with the process and connect with culture and understand the place of culture in there, and really get right into it, which was wonderful, and makes me really I suppose made me feel really good, because I speak in the PhD about the valuing of we need to value our own culture and see the value in culture, and that puts the value back in us. And just seeing their reaction to it actually made me feel, that our culture is what a wonderful thing it is, what a wonderful gift we have, and it's a wonderful gift we can share. We don't have to share all of it, but we can share part of it. So,
look, fantastic, brother, and I know a little bit about it, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic way of being able to get our stories and those sort of things told. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of the ways you went about doing this?
Yeah, sure. So what I did was, I suppose, I looked at all the different ways that we as First Nations people, how we collect our knowledge, how we pass our knowledge out on, and how we, if you like, store or archive our knowledge. And so what I did was I took all of those things and I used all of those things, and I sort of some of them came easily, like yarning. That's something we all grow up with. I don't even know how you explain what yarning is, but it's something we all do. It's not having a chat or something like that.
It's a really good point, though, isn't it? Because when we talk about yarning, it's really natural. But then when you talk to other people that don't understand the concept, they really struggle with that, and they think it's just maybe like another talk fest or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's much more than that, isn't it?
It is. It's I call it the evaluating process. You get in there and yarning for me is it's not a debate. It's not an argument. Or any of those things. Or it's like you put something. You'll say something, you put something out there, and someone else next to you will pick it up and they'll talk about it and they'll add to it, and then it goes around from that. And then someone says, "Well, have you thought about this?" And I don't look. As I say, I struggled to explain it, and it was hard to write about, to actually have to break it down. But the value of it for how we pass on information and how we help each other to understand knowledge through it is immense. So I used that, and I used Yinjamara. I based everything in, which is a Wiradjuri word meaning to listen and to honour and to take slowly, which is and we've all got that in all of our mobs. We've got that. Whatever word we have for it, we've all got it. It's the same. Basically, it's the same type of process as something like Dadiri, from the Daily River. And I think it's just a universal way we do things as Aboriginal people. That's what we do. Like as you and I have had conversations about, there's far more said in the silences than there is in the talking. That whole process of listening to people and taking it in and thinking about it before you open your mouth was a big part of it as well.
Can I just ask you, so when you went into, say, community and wanted to talk to different people and ask them about, what they're up to and explain about the, what you're actually doing, was it receptible, or were people a little bit standoffish, or what happened there, brother?
Look, to be honest with you, I suppose I should start from I decided at the beginning of all of this that everything I did, I was going to try and do our way. And so it was like in meeting you, Jack, and every step of the way, I relied on word of mouth. You and Lisa, I spoke to Meg Williams, and I knew Meg Williams from before, like from a while back, and I met Meg through my daughter Gemma. So it was all about personal relationships, and so from that, you and Lisa took me over with you to country, over to Broome, and introduced me to people and spoke for me. And so from the very start, it was following those processes that we have of, that relationality, speaking for someone, introducing someone. And so I felt from the very beginning with whoever I spoke to that I had an initial trust built with them. And then I think that a key point after that was the fact that I was an Aboriginal man, and I wasn't trying to put microphones in front of anyone's face, or I wasn't, I was, like I tried to say, look, this is what I'd like to do, but if you don't want to do it, that's fine. And what I just tried to do was I just talked to people, just sat there and yarned with people, and whatever they wanted to. I didn't have a set agenda. I didn't have questions I necessarily needed to ask or wanted to ask. I let people take the conversations where they wanted to. And in the end, that was the best information that I got. When people said later on, oh yeah, like interview me, sure, we did a taped interview, but all of the really good information came from before the taping, and where people were just telling you, just off the bat what they thought and how they thought and what they did and about themselves. And so, in order to capture that, I developed a way of, like our deep memory processes and our deep memory way of storing and passing on knowledge. And so I really worked on that, and and this is how I created the song lines. And I came up with different, if you like, different signposts to help me remember things. And I tried to have the conversations. I tried to have the conversations with, lucky enough to have with people when they were on their country, and so I was able to look at things, and I might be next to a boab tree, and so I'd remember the boab tree would put
Yeah,
my
yeah,
memory
yeah.
in the conversation and what we talked about. Yeah.
So, brother, two questions from me. Sorry. One is about, tell us a little bit about the story mapping, if you like, because for me, when I looked at it, I thought, fuck, this is seriously amazing stuff. I mean, and just to get a picture, CJ, and for everyone else out there, it's, you know, like it's like a map, if you like, and there's all different points of your life that you've actually had a discussion with Brett about, and it might be, you know, like one time I was struggling for money, and here we go. I mean, and Brett can describe it much better than what I can, but it just, for me, it was amazing. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Brett.
So that's just an idea of what they look like. So the way I built the maps. So what I do is when it came time to building the maps, first of all, I learnt the idea of story mapping from Judy Atkinson, but also it's used in psychology and well, actually not so much story mapping as such, but drawing and art is it's quite well, you know, and it's usually the people themselves that make the story maps, and they do a map of their life, and then you go from there. And in a way, that was how I was going to do it. And then I realized really quickly that it would be impossible to do that, you know, over at the other side of Australia, to take stuff over there or to be able to have the time to build it. And so I sort of came up with the idea, well, maybe what I should do is listen to what they've got, just concentrate on listening to what the people have got to say, and then I'll build the map. I'll so when I came back, the first thing I'd do is I'd listen to the taped stuff I had, and I'd make notes from the taped stuff. First of all, I just listened to the tape through the first time, and then the second time I'd take notes. Then I'd go for a walk on, you know, out on country, and just go for a walk and think about what I'd heard. And then in that process, it brought back the memories of like a lot of the stuff that had been said that wasn't taped. A lot of the stuff that I'd committed to memory. So then I'd come back from that, and then I would go and the place I went to was Spotlight, and I got material that had been done by I'll get the name wrong, but Warralangaloo mob from Central Australia, a women's art co-op, and they've printed up this material of all of their different stories onto fabric. And so I'd go and I'd look at what the stories were about, or I'd look at the colors, or I'd look at the pattern, and I'd relate that to the person that I had been listening to, and there'd always be something about it that drew me to some particular pattern. I just look at them. There's maybe 50 different patterns, and I'd be drawn to one. I can't explain it. I'd be just drawn to one, and so that would be the base. And then I would think about this. I'd think about their story, like I'd think about someone's story, and I'd be thinking about what's the essence of the person themselves and what it is and what it's about. So first of all of the maps are circular. They're all circular and circles within circles, because we as cultures are circular people. We don't have an end. We don't have a beginning. Our lives are always there's no end, and you know, like it's always constant. The past is in the present, and the future is in the present, and the past is in the future. We're always spiritually there, I guess. And so everything was in circles. So I would look at what they were telling me, and then I would think about, well, how am I going to represent that to get the essence of what they're telling me? Like, and that was just a process of thinking about what I could use to symbolize that thing that they were telling me about. So I don't know, as an example, like everybody's life was a journey, and then so out the front of my house I've got this poinciana tree, and it has pods, and when the pods drop off, they break in half to let the seeds out, and they're sort of, I don't know, they're sort of shaped like a boomerang, but they've got like lines on them, like tracks, like train tracks. And so that became the journey that people went on. I put all the pods around the map, and that became the journey that people were on. And then I have a ghost gum pod, and ghost gum pods are, they're sacred. They hold spirit. The ghost gum pods hold the spirits, and so I got the seeds of the ghost gum, and they became the spirits of community. And then I could carry that through in every map, and so I could have similarities in the map to show different things. I came up with the idea of like funding was a really it was like an omnipresent thing in there, and so I came up, how am I going to represent funding? And so I had some application forms, so I put application forms down, and I had an old game of Monopoly, so I grabbed the money out of the Monopoly game and I spread the money over the application forms. And then I would put different things on top of that. Like I had a book on colonialism, put that on top, and then I had a calculator. I put a calculator on it, and so that represented what all the application forms you had to go through to get funding for programs, and the calculator became the accountant's KPIs that you have to meet in your funding. And so that represent, like, so that pictorial, to write that and to explain that took about 30 pages, let's say. But to put that in the picture, people could, you can hold that. The beauty of the story maps is if you're the person who's had it done to you, you can hold it on your phone in a picture form, and you can say, there's my life story there, and see that there, that's funding. That's what I had to go through to get funding for my program, or when my funding program was cut, or I lost my job, and so for us, it's visual, and that was the beauty of it. Like in a Western sense, it takes 30 pages to explain it. In a First Nations sense, you can look at it in there and you go, oh yeah, that's funding, and that's knowledge. Or prisons, I represented prisons by I had a little chip basket, and I cut the end off that, so it was like a mesh upside down container, and I stuck a padlock on top of it, which represented locking people up in prison. And then I had an orange key label, and I put that on top, and the orange key label we get labelled as being worthless and as being this, that, and the other, and that became the idea of labelling us as criminalised and stuff like that. So it was all it was all a process, like there was a guy that Jack will know who was a CEO, and he was his life was dominated by getting money for funding. That was all he thought about. And so in his story map around the outside of his story map, it's just all Monopoly money going all the way around, because that just dominated everything about that he was doing. Like there's things like I used a level and a little kitchen scales to represent when people were balancing up community work against having to work for in some cases people were working for the child protection or something like that, and they had to balance up like the need for a job, but they didn't want to be going in there and taking kids from families, so it was that balance, and that represented that. So there was all, like, I'm just looking at the maps now, and then I had rope that was going around the funding, and then that was attached to something else, and that meant that was attached to a weight from a gym, and the weight from the gym had that represented mining, because in the weight there was zinc, there was iron ore, there was all these things, and so funding was always tied to mining communities. And I'm just trying to think of others, but then I also use the weight to represent different times strength and resilience in community, and I'd have one of those resistance bands with the weight, and that's the resilience, So it was, I don't know, like it's sort of one of those things where, and then another one I had a real massive theme that came out of the research was the need to listen and take your time in community, so what I did was I had this pod that was and I called it looked like a Coolamon, and I said we hold our and the idea of that was that we hold all of our precious things in our Coolamons, like our babies and food. And so inside that I put a set of headphones and a stopwatch, and that represented how precious taking time and listening is to our communities, and everybody spoke about that. So that had a centrality in all of the maps. It was near the middle of the maps. It's hard to explain because it's a visual thing itself. But yeah, so it was, if you think about it, if you think about what a songline is, and like a songline can be sung, a songline can be spoken, and a songline can be drawn in the sand. Like over there is this. You go, you travel there, and there'll be a story there'll be like a emu story or something like that, and it'll be about a particular place, and it'll be about maybe the way the stars are situated when it's over a particular rock or something, and that's how we navigate, and that's how we, and that's sort of like a song line, and the stories are part of that. And so, if you look at these, that's what these are. They're like, it's just like drawing images in the sand to represent different spots in someone's life and their story as they come to it, and what's important to them, trying to pick out what the important parts of it were to them, and just approaching things. In the end, just approaching things where I wasn't sticking a microphone under anybody's nose, and I wasn't asking questions, that everybody just told me what they really felt and what was important to them. And so I got this, that they told me this really great really great stuff, that in the end I was able to say in the PhD that because it's all about, like, we should be doing, I guess the whole key to the question I'm asking is, what about we do diversions instead of sending people to jail? And those diversions should be to healing programs. And the sense of it is that all of those things, like housing, racism, disadvantage, like substance abuse or whatever, they're not our problems. Okay, they're problems that have been thrust on us. That's not for us to fix. That problem is for the people who did it to fix. That's for the white people to fix, the colonists to fix. That's their job. That's not our job to fix that. Our job is to put faith in our cultures and understand that what our cultures are always about is about connection and healing and rebalancing. And it's about, that's what we have to do. And we do our part, and then they have to do their part. We can't as a people that are 3.5% of the population be expected to go and fix all of the problems that have been created for us over 250 odd years, or 230 or whatever it is years. That heavy lifting has to be done by the colonists. That's their job. And so I in the end, the participants, I call them storytellers. The storytellers in this project, that's what they said. They said, you need to listen, you need to consult, take your time. There's resilience in communities, there is adaptability, there's hope. We know what we're doing, we know what the problems are, we can do it. You just give us the money and then get out of the way and we'll do it. So, like all they have to do is to fix those problems is give us the ability to do it by give us the funds. And then we as groups, or we as different, because we're so many different cultures, but we as our own cultures, we just need to get back and understand what our culture gives us and the healing and the rebalancing it gives us. And that's basically what the research was about. And it's not what I said. That's what all the storytellers said. So, and it was in very simple terms. It was lots of their voices in it, and I might have interpreted some of it for in a sense, but all of their words are in the PhD. I put lots of quotes, direct quotes that people told me, because then the power is with them, is with the storyteller participants, and it's their voices that are heard, not mine. And that was very important. I didn't want this to be an ego thing, or this is me and this is my research or anything like that. It was very much this had to be a process where if you like, the stars of the show are the people that are given the knowledge, and it had to be all about what they thought and what they recommend, and that's what I think came out in the end. And that's probably that's sort of, I guess that's the thing that makes me the happiest out of it, that I feel like that came through.
Hey, there's a couple of comments there. Deadly achievement, Dr. Brett. You've been able to research, write, and share knowledge, wisdom, and culture that is verbally passed down through generations. And then the next one, the use of symbols directly tells a story in a way that is powerful and gets to the key points. The written word is often twisted to suit gubbers. So, look, fantastic. And just before I know CJ will have a few questions there, I just wanted to actually say that you need to pat yourself on the back for being able to go into community and build that trust, build that rapport for people to be able to tell their stories, because that's not an easy thing to do. And the other thing that I know, that your PhD, yes, it took 4 years or whatever it was, but there was a lot of toing and froing and changing and shifting and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't just a simple process, I don't think. So,
look, to be honest with you, the journey of the research is really the journey I went on in the research. And so I thought I was pretty connected before it, but I learned so much in the time I did it. I learned language. I learned there's so many things that people taught me along the way, and for that I'm forever grateful, because it increased my knowledge of different things, and that's what I love about it. I feel like I've come out of this. That's where I've come out of it as a winner, because it's done, because people have been able to share things with me, and it's like friendships and all of those things were important. It's far more important than the length of a PhD or something like that. I really, this whole thing was, I really wanted to make this not like that idea of like buying information off people, or I own it, or stuff like that. That's really, I just can't tell you how much I find that abhorrent. And the best thing that the two things that made me the happiest, I guess, in this is I remember I gave it to one bloke, sent him his map as soon as I'd done it, and I wrote up a guide to it because all the maps have got a guide to what they are. And I sent it to one bloke, and he had it up. He put it up as a screensaver on his. No, he had made a website on it, and he had that as his front page on his website. And then another fella, he sent me back a photo of it. He had it as a screensaver on his phone, and I thought I really felt that was the best thing when a bloke was walking around and he had his life story on his phone and he could just look at it or show it, or that to me was something that was one of the real highlights of doing it. And that, and all the people I met, of course.
Oh, I mean, I think that the visual effect is so powerful, brother. Like I mean, and I know, like you did one for Lisa and I, and just have a look at it. I mean, there's so many different emotions that run through, and you know the story as well as what I do, of how you've written it up, because it's your story, but it's not our story, but you're telling it, through our eyes. And for me, there's so many different emotions that run with that it's seriously, it's such a beautiful process, and you get to be able to reflect and be able to think about what's happened, and those sort of things. So yeah,
it's a lovely thing to do, to actually make the map. That like, I hope that people like them, but it's to actually go through it's like a bit of, it's memory, it's like mental gymnastics, like how am I going to represent this, and I had some unbelievable things happen to me during the process of it, and a lot of it is based, there's a lot of bird feathers in here from the different birds that all of my chapters are named after birds, and it's about the story of each bird as to what the chapter's about, and which I don't have chapter numbers or anything like that. Every chapter is named after a bird that's named in Wiradjuri after a bird. So that was really important to me, to break away from that idea of where possible what Western academia want, and to give them something different. That's why I wanted to use language as much as I could, because I think through language country hears. So I wanted it to be so that, and I made, to be honest with you, I really put the reader through the process of like looking things from our worldview, and so whenever I used the Wiradjuri word, because I use Wiradjuri words, I put the English translation right next to it, and so it was constant. And I did that the whole way through the 100,000 words of it, and so people commented, the examiners commented to me afterwards that what that did was that idea of, and it's in our culture, that idea of repetition and reminding, and so they didn't have the opportunity to they didn't have the opportunity to go back and look at the glossary at the beginning. They had to stay in the moment because they had the translation there, and they also just couldn't gloss over it and think, I don't know what that means, and I'm just going to keep going. It was right there in front of their face, and it just kept saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it. And so I got these comments back, and even today I got a couple of emails from them, and they're actually using Wiradjuri language back to me about different things, like proper way, like Maraway Murrumbul proper way, which I use all the way through, and they're actually saying we were so happy about and your connection to Narrabang, which is Wiradjuri for country, and that actually picked up, by the end of it, that actually picked up language. So I feel like I'm doing counter intelligence work there, and I'm just getting that Aboriginal culture right in there and right at them. So that was, and that's, so there's people running around Canada using Wiradjuri language. So I was pretty happy about that. So it's I think it's I'm hoping that other people will, because it's the wish with this is I pass this on. This is not something for me to keep. This process is not mine to own. It was gifted to me, like country gifted it to me. So, like it's not mine to keep it. I gift it back to whoever wants to use it. And I hope people do use it, because it's a really beautiful process to go through and to put yourself through in order to help people, because I think it does help people. I think it's got the ability, like I've used it in a research format, but I think it's got the ability, if you're talking to people, where they can see their life and what's happened in their life and what the choices they've made, and if you like those type of things, they can see it in a pictorial form, like straight away when they look at it, and they don't have to look up a doctor's report. They don't have to look at and try and translate a doctor's report. They don't have to do any of that. They can just see. They can see what they've told someone, I guess, not what, not how someone's, like it's not me interpreting stuff. My interpretation is, how do I show that symbolically? Not, I'm going to interpret what they're saying. I just want to show them what. My job is just to find something to symbolise what they haven't told me, not me saying, I think they meant this. No, this is what they meant. I've got to find something that will represent what they said. So I guess that's the truth of it, and that was important too. Everything had to be truthful. Had to be true in there. Yeah. So. But and it's I don't know. Look, I think it's an okay read as well, and like I talk about different stories in there. I had some crazy things happen to me. I had one fella, and he had Scottish ancestry, and I'm like, oh geez, I think to myself, Jesus, how am I going to show Scottish ancestry? And like my mother-in-law's Scottish, and I thought, oh Jesus, I could go and get a tartan, and I could maybe put that in there. And I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what tartan it is. I don't want to offend him, like I'm thinking like this, and I'm thinking, oh, what will I do? So I took myself off in the country and went for a walk, and I go around the corner of this walk I'm on, and they're staring at me. By itself is a thistle, the symbol of Scotland, like a purple thistle with the green, just one of them just standing there right now. I'm looking at it and I'm going, I did a double take on it. And then I'm like, I thought, so I took a photo of it. I thought, you have to, I'll put the photo into the map. And I got thinking about it, and I thought, it would be really great to, actually put the thing itself in. And then I thought, no, that's wrong. You got to ask country. You can't just go and take stuff. You've got to, So I really thought about it for that day, and and I asked, I did. I sort of asked country. I spoke about it, and I thought, well, it's in a sense, it's not native to Australia. It's an introduced weed. And, I don't know. I don't know if country was talking to me or I was trying to rationalise it, but I actually did. I did take it, and then you wouldn't believe it. I'm walking the same place the next day, and the guy from the council's there, and he's spraying all the weeds. So he would have sprayed the weeds, and he would have killed it anyway. So I don't know. Look. I reckon this is a good story, and if you bear with me, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you the story of the black swan. So we've got a lot of swans where I live, right? A lot of black swans, and they always had chicks, and I was walking the dogs, this morning, and I came across this beautiful black swan feather, big black swan feather, and I thought, wow, this is so unusual, So I picked it up, and I thought, this is going to mean something, like finding something like this is going to mean something. So I went home, and I looked it up. I went through all the stories that I knew, and I asked a few people, and they come up with a story, and it's a pretty common story about how the black swan got made black. He was a white swan, but he was, he was full of himself, and raving on about how good looking he was. And so all the other birds pecked all of his feathers off. And then the crow was flying over top and saw he had no feathers. So the crow took out his own feathers and gave them to the swan to make a black swan. I thought, I wonder what this is what it's about. It's about reciprocity, you know, like it's a major thing. I'll write about this and I'll use this in my PhD. And I thought, okay. And I thought, I've got the answer to that. And then I was telling my daughter about it. And she said, oh, I was reading something about black swans, And she said, give me a minute, I'll go and find it. And anyway, she came back and she said, oh, I was reading about the Durug mob, and you're not going to believe this, but the black swan is called Mulgoa in Durug. And she said, isn't that funny? And I said, yeah, because Mulgoa is out near Penrith in Sydney. Now, my great-great-grandmother, anyway, they all got murdered, and she was the last one left. And she got taken as a baby by this big pastoralist called the Cox family. Notwithstanding, they're the mob that killed her family, but anyway, they took her in, and she spent the last years of her life on their property in Mulgoa. And so it was really significant. And Gemma said, yeah, I read it in this book about this building in Mulgoa where the Cox family lived. She said, I'll send it to you. So she sent it to me, and so I'm looking through it. And it's called Windbourne. And I'm reading the story about it, and it said, it was sold to the Catholic Church in the early 60s. And I thought, oh, right, okay. And then they said, and it was then it was given to the Christian Brothers, in the Catholic Church. And I thought, oh, shit, isn't that weird? Like, I went to a Christian Brothers school, for my sins. I got sent to a Christian Brothers school, which I didn't like. I'll give you the drum on that now. I didn't fit in real well there. And I thought about it, and I thought, oh, hang on a second. They used to send us up there to do retreats. And so, as it turns out, I had actually spent time living in the same building that my great-great-grandmother lived in, when she passed away. And so we'd actually stayed in the same place almost 100 years apart, and I never knew that. So it was like stories like that where there's hidden meaning to them, and I never would have known that if I hadn't have done this research. And that's probably the best memory I take out of it is that story, because I never knew it, and it just connects me back to my ancestors, and back to the old people. So that was a wonderful part of it. So yeah, I feel like I've got this PhD under full circumstances because I've really enjoyed the process. So, yeah. But yeah, it's
amazing, mate. Amazing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hey, can you still hear me, you guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Because I don't have a visual at the moment. So, but I just wanted to say, look, what an amazing journey you've been on, mate. And and I wanted to jump in a bit earlier, but the internet here is a bit shaky. So I thought I'd save it for a moment, and this is the moment, I guess. So one of the things I got out of all of that, and honestly, how important is listening, and it's not just listening to the thing as well. And sometimes when you do listen really deeply, I guess, and you walk away from that, and you realise that what was said actually had a different meaning. It meant something else, not what the words were saying. You know what I mean? And I guess, but you must have encountered some of that way, because I know that you said that, after each one you'd go for a walk in country and try to decipher all of that. So it's kind of interesting. I said, it's what a great way to interpret all that. You know what I mean? How do you actually articulate all of those things? And your way was in a map, in the song lines, like a map. And it must have been a task for the assessors to be able to go backwards
Yeah,
is probably an indication for them as well. Yeah.
just in that, just like, because the examiners, they send you back comments afterwards. They have to write you about a big comment, and one of them, well, I think both of them, but one of them particularly got really into the story maps. So what she did in the end, she had a hard copy of it, so she'd pull out the map drawing or the map picture that's in the PhD, and she'd have them all arranged, and she was linking them up, reading the guides to them, and then linking them up and working out what they mean. And then out of all of those, I've got like eight maps of different people. And then what I do is the next lot of maps I pull out the themes of those maps and talk about those. And so that's the data analysis part of it. And so what she did was she got so into it that when she got to that data analysis bit, she got all the maps out again and went looking for them to see if she could work out what I was showing without reading the guide. Before she read the guide, she wanted to see if she could do it, like follow the story without having to go through the guide, my guide through it. Yeah, she really got into it, which was really great. I
I think it's amazing, brother.
That anyone would do that. I got to be honest.
Can you still hear me?
Sorry, brother. Just breaking up there a little bit. Derek Wilson's got another comment. What you have done, Doctor, is created something that can be used within schools. It's relatable to all ages. So I think, and like my understanding of it, I just think it's a fabulous concept. The other thing that really drew me to it was early days when we were with Mibbenbar, we did a thing called storyboarding with, and Dr. Rick Hayes was behind that, but he used the Bill Law's principle of storyboarding, and it was about, it was about past, present, and future. So this sort of stuff that you're talking about is just been amazing for me. It's just opened up my eyes, and to look at our own story map and just go, oh shit, what does that mean there? And then to be able to read the legend that goes with it is just amazing. It's just something that, I don't think you missed a beat on it, because you go back and you go, oh shit, I remember talking about that. You know what I mean? And doing those sort of things. So I think it's a really good way of being able to tell your story, but then also go, geez, yeah, no, I do. I remember saying that, and I love how it's been portrayed as well. So,
I'd love to see, all of that's, like my sort of hope is that, young people see it, young Aboriginal people see it, or First Nations people see it, and I hope they go, oh shit, that's my culture. That's how good my culture is. That's what we can do. We can do that, and that's, like that process is as good as anything that Western science has got. If anything, I make the argument that in mine, in the PhD, that this process is more, how would I put it, more exact and more rigorous than any Western approach that they could come up with. That this one here goes through about 13 different bloody sieves to get to the information, and yet you can look at it, and you don't need a doctorate to look at it and understand it. You can look at it, and it means, it immediately means something to you. So and it's it's accessible. That's that's what that was from one part of it that I wanted to show. Like I'm really want young First Nations kids to look at this and have real pride in what their culture is and what their culture does, and the value of their culture and the value of us as people too.
Yeah, well said.
Excellent work, mate. Yeah.
So it's been good, and I trying to work at the moment. We're working at the moment on trying to create this event or exhibition using the maps and other First Nations people that have done PhD work and the ways that they've got their knowledge and the ways that they're disseminating their knowledge in different ways. And we're sort of working on putting something together like that in an event in Sydney, and if we get it up and going, we've got a lot of interest in it. If we can get it up and going, then we'll be hopefully taking it on the road. And that, in my mind, the idea is we just take it all. For a start, we take it around Australia, and when we get to different places, we look at different young people that are doing work in that area, and then try and get them to put work into the exhibition, and then go from there and go along like that, so that we every mob is celebrated along the way, and their culture gets to stand out. Well, that would be the hope.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So.
Hello, MJ, in the background there.
Yeah, she's just recording this for me. So where we are when we hear this, hear our stories. The guys that come on, Brett, yours was amazing, and I think that it also goes to kind of explain when you look at, and you immediately have this perspective, but what the real story is behind it is something that can't be heard or can't be seen. You know what I mean? And so you walk away with this perspective, which may in fact be incorrect in terms of what you're looking at. You know what I mean? And it's until you find out later on. It's and it's a bit like that discovery around the black swan stuff and your great grandparents, Brett. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden it drops on you and think, wow, hold on a minute, that's amazing. I had it wrong. I've been, I'm thinking one way, but way that I should have been thinking, about what I've witnessed and what I saw or what I've heard, so exciting, I guess, the way that you've interpreted everything that you in your PhD, and it was a learning process, I guess. You were taking out the examiners, I guess, in terms of how to read those storylines.
Yeah, it's as I say, I mean, I think that's like, it's not a I don't see it as like a personal, like sort of like achievement. I just think it's an achievement for our mob, for our cultures, and to have people to be able to connect to how well. I mean, I make sure I don't claim that I have any particular special knowledge or cultural knowledge. I'm not saying that these story maps are traditional song lines. They're adapted. They're a new way of looking at it. Our traditional song lines still remain, and we still need to work on connecting those. This is another way to look at it, and that's the great thing about our culture. I believe it's the great thing about our cultures is their resilience and their ability to adapt. They've got 65,000 years of adapting to ice ages, megafauna, loss of megafauna. In the end, whitefellas coming, and yet we're still here. So, we can play the long game. We're ideally suited to it, and that's what is sort of I'm trying to show here too, that we're not our cultures respect our knowledges, but they also can move and change when new circumstances, when they meet new challenges, and they can rise to those challenges and overcome those challenges. And so that's what I hope these maps sort of represent as well. That adaptability that we have.
Brilliantly said, brother. I'm going to just give you a bit of a pat on the back and all the amazing work that you have done through it. So, like you can play it down all you like, but you still had to do the work. You still had to work through those different processes. And, I know some of the things that you've been through, and, like you've lost your hair since you started the PhD. So,
had an afro before when I started.
No, but look, well done, brother. And look, we appreciate you coming on to have a yarn with us. And look, I just love the story. We love the story. It's fantastic. It's just an amazing way to get people to understand a little bit about their own lives, and they can see every little bit in it as well. So well done, brother. And look, I'm going to hand it over to CJ just to talk us out, and then we're going. So,
mate, it's a bit of a ditto in terms of what Jack said, and big congrats anyway to achieving your PhD. Amazing. It's it was a labour of love, I think, bud, and I think that definitely the awards and whatever the PhD that you have is a true testament to that, I guess. And it's like you say, it's a representation of people, and our people. The subject that you chose to, I suppose, chose to do the study on. So fantastic work. As always, and quite a couple of times you've been on as well. So this is something very special, bro. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I thank you for having me on, and I always love yarning to you fellas. It's always great fun, and I don't always get a chance to listen to every one of them, but I do whack the headphones in and listen to a few of them along the way. So it's something that I do enjoy, and it's just wonderful to talk to you guys and anyone else that's listening. It's really nice. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, brother Brett, and we'll get you back on later down the track to tell us how things are going.
Anytime.
All right, brother. Take care. Everyone, have a good rest of the week. We'll see you next week. So, and thanks again, Brett. Bye.